it's time to get into our interview. You guys, if you got any questions in the comments, please come in and talk about it. But I have my friend Kelly Wilson in here, the Deputy Director of St. Johns County's EOC. You're about 20 years into your career, 20 years into your career. I remember back when you did get started there, and we used to have some fun times in the EOC. And it's a pain in the butt, but you got to make the best of it. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things you guys always have done an amazing job with. But welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you welcome into the studio and not on the phone going, what's going on? When are we going to get hit? So right now we don't have anything huge going on out there, which is probably a very good thing for you. Quiet is good in your job. Mm-hmm. So how did you end up being an EOC worker? What is there something that drew you to it? So or was it by default, or how does that happen?
No, you know what? It's interesting is I think most emergency managers come by some path. Mm-hmm. And so I actually went to school at the University of South Florida in Tampa. I'm a native Floridian. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Central Florida, and I went to school and I got a master's degree in environmental science, and my focus was in geology and sinkholes, which a sinkhole is a hazard.
Yeah.
I ended up in Key West by way of marrying a sailor. And so I lived in Key West, and I needed a job, and got hired by their planning department because I did a lot of GIS work on the way back. So I did GIS work, and I mapped developments and stuff in Key West, and it kept getting hit by hurricanes. Mm-hmm. That was around 2004 or 5.
Yeah.
And so
that was that year.
Yeah,
that was the crisscross year.
And then 5 wasn't any better for down in South Florida. Like Katrina went across Key West, but the Keys before it ever went to Louisiana.
Yeah, and
things like that. So we had several. So we ended up working for the city of Key West, being the people that dealt with FEMA and some of the recovery. Mm-hmm. So I got transferred to Jacksonville. I needed a job, and back then they were expanding the emergency management department here, and they needed a writer, and I'm a really good writer. And I remember Ray and Linda, who hired me and taught me everything I know about emergency management, said they needed a writer. They could teach me emergency management. They needed the right person to teach it to. They needed somebody that could write. Mm-hmm. And that is the story of how I became an emergency manager. And that some of the finest emergency managers in this state, and you worked with both of them, are the ones who taught me to be an emergency manager. Yeah. So that's how I got here.
No, and I think my first experience was with Ray, obviously with Ray and Linda, was during Floyd. So I
was just getting out of high school. I'm not even that old. I was like a sophomore in college. 98?
98, 99.
Oof, I was a sophomore in college. Come on.
I take it back. My first one was with the wildfires, which I think was in 98. And I think Floyd was in 90. I think Floyd was in 99. But Floyd was the one where we really, we got locked in for several days, and that was my first experience. And I was doing public information, running that station, and it's my first experience, and kind of what got me going. Okay, this is the group I need to be at when things are bad. And this was before Blake was even born. He didn't come along until 2001. I had an older woman, and she was watching out for her daughter who was in a wheelchair in St. Augustine Shores, and she was just as afraid as you could be. And I ended up staying on the phone with her for like 45 minutes. I was able to get a fire rescue to stop over there and just check on them, and like, we're going to check on you and like. But it was one of those moments where it was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed. I was aggravated and angry. I was like, I got to do this overtime, and But it's the people that work in there are a lot of county staff and from all different departments from all over. You have FPL and you have all that. But it was my moment where it's like, okay, this is worth being here for. And I think everybody who works in there kind of has one of those.
You care. You're invested. This is our community. We all live here. Your families, friends, all those folks are here. Their kids play soccer with your kids. Mm-hmm. Like, we're all here doing this together. We do it because we care.
Yeah.
It's not the money. It's not, because it's certainly not the glory, because we don't get a whole lot of that or anything like that. We genuinely care. Usually we're on the receiving end of upset people.
Yeah. So. Usually you're you're not heard of until all of a sudden you're the most important department in the entire.
We're very quiet until we become very important very quickly.
No department knows about you, and then all of a sudden everybody knows about you. Yeah. So we talked about Ray and Linda. So you started under Ray.
Yep.
And at the old EOC, which is across the street from us here. How big of a difference was it from the old EOC moving out to the new facility?
One of the biggest things was when we moved out there, it was 2009. There was nothing out there at 16 and 95.
Yeah.
Now there's everything out there because we still had, the building was bigger and it was new and it didn't have the weird creakiness of the old building and things like that. But in the old building, we had, 911 dispatch was in there with us. So we had sheriff's office and fire rescue. And, fire rescue had recently moved. So it was twofold. The two strangest things were, it was just us. And at that time, there was 4 of us. There was nobody else wandering in or out. And the lack of, we used to go to lunch every day. Well, we started having to get our lunch in because there was, I think Cracker Barrel was there.
Yeah.
But there was hardly anything out there. We were, when we were there, we were like, we are way out here now.
Yeah, there's nothing out on State Road 16.
There's nothing out here at 1695, and that wasn't that long ago. It was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So that would have been one of the biggest differences. But, this building is actually in an evacuation zone. So this is Zone B where you are right now. So we needed to build a survivable EOC that would never have to be evacuated. So there was grant money available at that time. And unfortunately, fortunately, the economy was faltering in 2008, 2009. So they built that building for not a huge sum of money. It was
well, I don't know if you know the whole story about how the money came to be with the EOC, but I had Jerry Cameron was the assistant county administrator, and I have the ability to see things from a different perspective. And we had to do some moving around of a combination of some impact fees and some Parks and Rec money and some other things. So because of the way that all of us worked together, Ray said I always had a bed out at the EOC. I didn't know. Do I still have a bed at the EOC?
Listen, Parks and Rec always had a bed, but if you can come out there, you can live report from the EOC. You certainly can.
Yeah, we
you can bring your show on the road.
We will be out there. That's for sure. Because I still have a lot of amazing friends like yourself and others still with the county. But it was like you said, it was really hard in 2007, 2008, 2009 with funds.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of pushback with that. But I mean, I think
and it's one of those things that I think of now. You'll see a lot of groundbreakings the county does for these parks and things we're doing, which are these phenomenal parks they're doing. We did not have a groundbreaking for that building. There was no groundbreaking when they started building the building, simply because the economy was so difficult at that time.
Yeah, we didn't want to rub it in people's face.
Right.
I mean, we opened some parks during that time too, and we just opened them.
It was just quietly, because the thing was the money was in the works already, and it was just one of those very quiet things. So, but it's a phenomenal facility. People still come and tour that and that facility is 15 years old. We take very good care of it. But people still come and ask for tours of it because they think it's one of the best EOCs in the state of Florida. And every county in the state of Florida has to have an emergency operations center. So ours is still one of the best.
All right. So you talked about only having 4 when you started in 2006. How many people? What's your staff like right now? The director,
7 of us.
7 of you.
There's 7 of us there.
Okay.
So, and it's always like the strength is the 7 of us because we can't do it. The strength comes when the EOC does activate it, when everybody does know who is the EOC, is that room fills, and you've been witness to it with over 100 people from a lot of county departments, city, state, fed, our nonprofit nonprofit agencies. All of those folks are what make it. And I always tell people, I was like, if you want to see just the magic of that room, is watch it activate. That everybody knows their job. No one has to tell Parks and Rec that on the back side of this, they're opening points of distribution, which is the food and water. They're standing there as soon as we order the evacuation. Hey, where do we think we're going to be opening these? Public Works is out there. A lot of times they open sandbag locations early and getting sandbags out. And it's just everybody knows their job. St. Johns County does an incredible job with this.
Well, one of the things that's amazing in the coordination of it is the shelters and the coordination with the school district. You know, we have a new superintendent, but he understands the process because he was the assistant director. How does that look? That relationship with the school district, saying, okay, which ones we're going to open? How do you coordinate with the individual principals and the school district itself?
So what's interesting is Brendan was actually here. You know, Dr. Asplund was here several years before he had moved on to Sarasota. So we knew him from them. So you know, it's great that we have that continued partnership with the St. Johns County School District and our facilities folks over there. But how that works is once we make that decision to order those evacuations, they are in the room when we make that decision. We then look at them because we know approximately the number of folks that we're going to need to shelter based upon the evacuation. And we'll tell them, we may need 1 special medical needs, 2 pet-friendly shelters, which our friends over at Animal Care and Control, they actually manage our pet-friendly shelters with the school district. Department of Health manages with the school district the special needs, and then general population shelters. And we tell them we need this many. And we need them, the pet-friendly and special medical needs are set, but the other ones, we have many of them. The school district then says, okay, let's use this, this, and this, because they will strategically choose them based upon, what if somebody's been having a roof issue and they're having their roof redone or something like that? Because these facilities were built as shelters. So not all schools are shelters. The ones that we have have been specifically designed as shelters.
They've been hardened to be.
And with the number, our school district is so phenomenal about that, is they come to us when they're about to build a new school and they say, hey, we're building this school here. Do you need this one as a shelter? Many times we say yes. Sometimes we say no, simply because of location. We like high schools and middle schools. Now we mostly build K through 8s. But they're phenomenal and they come to us. But that's
the gymnasium
usually it's the gymnasium and the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Yep. And they'll tell us we'd like to use these schools for our general population, and then we'll have the other ones. They then, their maintenance coordinators and all those folks that work the buildings and the principals, they coordinate with them to get them open. Takes several hours to get those open, and then they get open, and then the Department of Health gets them set up in the special medical needs. Paul Studevant with Animal Control and his crew get out to the pet-friendly shelters.
Yeah, that's who I would always get in trouble with at the center.
Oh yeah,
me and Paul would always be in trouble.
Paul will keep you entertained if you're in that EOC. Yeah. Anybody that knows Paul knows that Paul will. No, Paul will keep you laughing.
We would get in trouble, and like one time during an interview, Paul told me that one of the worst jokes I've ever heard, and we didn't realize we were behind Ray, who was getting interviewed, and we were just cracking up laughing. And then we look, and we're like kids like getting caught, and we look at the camera like, huh! and we both like split off in different directions. No, when it's downtime, like we're in hurricane season right now. You guys are keeping an eye on everything, when it's an active, because I've only really been there when it's an active hurricane or some type of emergency. So, the announcement time from the state's kind of like the important, like everybody's like, okay, we're getting the information like right before it goes to the public. What is going on with your state communications, like in situations right now? Are they saying, hey, you need to be doing this or you need to be doing that? I think you guys just did a mock in May, right?
Yeah, we did our exercise in May, and I will tell you, and you have been at those exercises before, they are so popular these days, we have to do it twice. We do an AM and a PM shift with a shift change, so that we can accommodate and train as many of our folks that are going to work in that EOC as possible. So, we did that at the end of May. We spend a lot of time with trainings this time of year. We host trainings and send folks to training. And we are, tightening up one of our things, how we alert everybody. We start working our way through those alertings and testing our alerting systems. We meet with all of our EOC partners monthly this time of year. The state right now, what they're doing is like every day now, because was Barry still named this morning? I'm not sure. Because it was shortly lived, the one going into Mexico. But right now they're sending out reports because most of you probably noticed there's that yellow blob with a 20% chance in 7 days of maybe doing something. And Troy's weather report, it's going to look a lot like that the rest of the week. Yeah. The National Weather Service and the state are sending up like, here it is.
Yeah.
And it's just going to, it's going to increase rain chances this week.
Yeah.
Right now. Will it do something in a couple days? Hard to say. There's a lot of dry air and this, that, and the other. We're not meteorologists, but so right now there's more communication coming. Now's a great time. Like, it's probably going to rain quite a bit this week. I need it not to rain on the 4th of July. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Because I need everybody to light all their fireworks off, because my dog does not like fireworks. She's very afraid of fireworks. So I need everybody to light them all off on the 4th of July.
Right on that day.
Like, let's go. She will medicate it. She'll be all medicated up, and let's get it over with. But yeah, it's going to be rainy. So there's increased communication, even when it's just that yellow blob. Like even right today. Yeah.
Kelly, right before the break, we teased, what are some of the things not to do in these hurricane times? Like, people are, just what are some of the more common mistakes? Either staying too long. I mean, there's a lot of things people do that they just shouldn't do, and we're probably the worst being Floridians.
Yeah, well, I think what I refer to it as learning wrong lessons. Just because you were okay the last storm and you chose to ignore that evacuation order, it doesn't mean you're going to be okay this time. If you are ordered to evacuate, it is because the forecast we are receiving from the National Hurricane Center, the National Weather Service, Jacksonville, is telling us that there will be water where you are. Okay. And a lot of folks will say, well, I live on fairly high ground. That may be true. And what you may end up on is an island that you cannot get to, or no one can get to you, and you cannot get off of. You may suffer significant damage around you. So what we are trying to tell folks is, when we order you to evacuate, when we listen to that order, we do not make it lightly. We make it with the best information, with the best scientists there are from the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service, Jacksonville. And like, I like to tell a story about that, and it would have been 22. It would have been the year of Ian and Nicole, and we asked folks to leave for Ian. Ian came from the West Coast, and a lot of folks are like, it's coming from the other side, I don't need to go. Well, we had fairly significant flooding, not Matthew or Irma level, but there was
it was about 6 inches below.
Yeah.
My house knows exactly what the level was.
So folks were like, okay. And then Nicole is what causes me to no longer trust November. November used to be like, it'll be all right now. We're at the home stretch. It'll be okay. Nicole came around the 9th, I think, of November, right around there. And it started off the East Coast down there, and it started to come up. It was just a dying 1 to a tropical storm. That's why we never call them just a Category 1. As it came by us, we already had damaged infrastructure from Ian. It caused a significant amount of flooding. We told folks, if you flooded for Ian, you're going to flood again. You should go. Folks were looking at it as just a tropical storm, or just barely a one that wasn't going to make landfall. And that was the one that washed out A1A there at Carcaba Road. And Guana was underwater. And interestingly enough, we found out that everybody, when we it was about 7 miles of A1A up there that we asked to put a shelter in place. It got really interesting how many folks immediately wanted to evacuate at that moment.
At that moment.
It became critical to evacuate. So don't be one of those folks. You're putting yourself in danger, and there may be a time where our first responders can no longer get to you. Some of the other things is, and also you're going to be uncomfortable out there. You're not going to have power, probably not going to have water. So evacuate when we ask you to do so. Don't wait till, there's a storm coming at us in a 5-day cone to go get all your supplies, including if you want plywood for your windows. Go do that today. Go ahead and get that stuff. Get on your roof. Troy was talking about roofing. Get on your roof. Or if you don't do ladders, I don't do ladders, call a reputable roofing company to come take a look.
Finest Roofing.
There you go. Call a reputable and have them come look at your roof. Make sure it's okay. You got any trees banging up against your house right now? Great time to. I don't know if you have any tree sponsors.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have any, call the tree company and have them come trim those trees now. Get that stuff away from your house to protect your house so there aren't trees banging against it. So these are the little things you can start. And if you hear one thing and one thing only, go check your insurance policy. And if your insurance policy doesn't include a flood insurance policy, go buy a flood insurance policy. I cannot stress enough to go buy flood insurance. Even if you are not required to have flood insurance by your mortgage, there's a lot of times that's not included in those evacuation zones. A whole lot of people learned very hard lessons back there in Matthew and Irma, and you may remember those. A lot of folks say, well, my mortgage company didn't require it. That's true. But unfortunately, the storm surge did, in fact, flood those folks. And your homeowner's insurance policy doesn't cover that rising water, storm surge, flood type damage. So that's one of the really important things that you can go do is buy flood insurance.
All right. And I'm going to take us to a place, and you tell me where you're comfortable with the announcement of FEMA being done at the end of the year. There has to be something that's going to fill that gap and where it is. You guys obviously, with the role where you're at, it works with FEMA. I have not always had the best experience with FEMA when I was with the county, and because I was like the young director, so they'd send me up with the helicopter and have to do the evaluations and stuff like that. And I'm assuming you guys still do.
Yeah, we find, you know what it is? We find the smallest person we can find because the helicopter can fly the longest.
Yeah, is that what it was?
Yes, we find the smallest.
So I fit that role.
The people willing to do it, because it's not me. I'm not getting in that helicopter.
So I fit both of those.
You did.
I'm bigger now. There's more of me now. 15 years later, 20 years later. And I had to communicate with FEMA on that damage, and the problem I had with FEMA is they did so much contract work, they would switch people up, and it was really a pain in the ass.
And they still do.
They still do that. So I mean, FEMA might be looking different, but hopefully they can kind of clean up where some of their mistakes are. How is that? Has anything changed with that announcement with you guys at the EOC?
Well, like you said, what we have been advised from the state of Florida, it will look very similar to how it has this year. Okay, going forward will be interesting, because the thing we always like to remind folks about FEMA, because I know a lot of people have struggled with them, is they reimburse funds to the county. So like 75% of the funds the county expends in a hurricane, FEMA reimburses those. Now it may take years to reimburse those funds. So and it does. It's a lot of paperwork with a lot of folks that you change over time. We're still receiving reimbursements from storms from years ago. But what does it look like? Our struggle is we're not sure what it's going to look like. What we have been advised, but it has changed several times, is they'll be more focused on response, a quick response, and a short-term recovery. Well, the thing about FEMA is that their response looks like those. If you ever had those teams walk through your neighborhood to try to help you with damage, that would be their response and recovery. And what we're very interested in, what is the recovery? And when we look at recovery, we look at monetary recovery. What does the monetary side, how does that come back to us? And are you going to make it easier to recover those funds for St. John's County?
And that to me was the biggest challenge is, you and I have worked in the government world, so we understand, okay, this form has to be filled out before you can, do this one. And we understand the order of operation and stuff, but it made it so challenging to the public. These people are really, really hurting. Their lives are in their front yards. And then you got this FEMA contractor going, no, well, you filled this one out wrong.
Yeah.
Well, sit with them and help them figure it out and fill it out with them. And that was one of my frustrations that I had with them. So whatever it looks like, I hope it, they
We
improve.
do too. The one thing we have, if you ever had the opportunity to visit one of their disaster recovery centers, which we had many times at our wind mitigation building over there by the Ag Center, it looks like this year that is one change we'll see, is they'll become multi-agency resource centers, and the difference becomes, instead of being FEMA run, they will both be St. John's County and state run. So hopefully we will be able to help folks. But the thing that we want everybody to understand is whatever FEMA looks like on the backside, nothing will change in the way that St. John's County responds, the way that we help our residents. We will figure it out. We will overcome it, however it is. And, we will still always be there to assist our residents in the same way they've always seen.
And I mean, I'm assuming they still do like set up centers for like water and stuff like that, like after the fact to kind of help people. And we always use the parks for that. So hopefully all those things stay in place. The fairgrounds for FEMA was a debris and an alternate site because it was so high out there. So I'm assuming all of those things will still.
Yeah, so FP&L uses that now. FP&L usually uses that. Yeah, but the points of distribution, like the food and water, that's Parks and Recreation. They do a phenomenal job. They walk through the doors. What do we got? We order the supplies in, the food, the water, to hand out to folks because they don't have their food, they don't have their water, and we manage that.
Keep people in the car and just keep moving.
Keep them moving. Don't get out of your car. We're going to put it in. It's going to be full service. Going to keep going. And, we'll run those for a couple days, especially when we lose power and we lose water. And that is a locally run operation. Many times we'll get the National Guard to help just because they're many hands.
Their bodies,
they're many hands to help do the work. But that you will not see a change. You will still see that. Those types of operations, the county has always managed them with some assistance, but you'll continue to see that level of service.
All right. I got one more question, but I want to go to the boys in the booth there. You guys have anything else that you need to ask? And then
I know my dad brought up the current administration's plan to shut down FEMA as we know it, as possible with that. But there's also been talks about the decrease of funding for NOAA and the National Weather Service as well. Have you heard if this funding plan goes through what might happen to forecasts, meteorologists, data have you heard what might happen to the data that we use to identify hurricanes and how to prepare for hurricanes?
Yeah, so we would very much like to see those folks keep their funding. We have no idea how that ends up, in Washington D.C., but we'd like to remind everybody where you go for your weather forecast, or the National Weather Service Jacksonville and the National Hurricane Center that's out of Miami. Those are well-trained meteorologists with many years of experience. So, we would never want to see any of their funding, because if their funding goes away, those are the people we are counting on. I'm sure a lot of folks, they like to look at their favorite internet meteorologist, whoever blogger. Those folks are getting their information from the National Hurricane Center, from the National Weather Service. So always remember those folks are getting their data from them. So they are critical. They are critical, and they're getting better with their forecasts. And I know people get upset, it's slightly off, but it's incredible. If you would look at 10 years ago,
the spaghetti,
yeah. If you took a forecast model from 10 years ago to today, they're much more accurate. You can't just pinpoint a point in time.
Because when we sat in the EOCs, we all would pick our I'm gonna be the yellow line, you're gonna be the green line, you're gonna and whoever comes. I mean, there was always a little competition, which way it was going to go.
So we certainly we need to keep those folks funded, so that they are critical to the work we do. They're the one that give us the forecast that say over at the Castillo we are going to see 5 to 7 feet of water above ground. Without them, we don't know who we should evacuate.
Yeah.
They're the ones that tell us that forecast. So they are critical to our public safety mission.
All right. And one of the most common questions is, and I know there's not an exact number on this or what it is. People always ask, they call the EOC, and this is probably the most common question: the bridges. When are the bridges?
Lord, those bridges.
The bridges. Are you going to close the bridge? Are you not going to?
When are you closing the bridge?
Kelly, when are you closing the bridge? You have nothing to do with that. But I mean, can you explain to them about that question and the best way to respond to that question?
I always, when people say, what is asked the most questions? Bridges. 40 billion times.
Bridges.
So I will tell you, bridges usually self-close. That's what we like to tell people. Look at the Bridge Alliance, for example, May Street down by the Valana Bridge. Usually the approaches begin flooding. And we tell people, especially those tall bridges, after about 40 miles an hour, they're not safe to travel. But we do not close bridges. We do not. Usually the access becomes blocked. So bridges do that. But I will tell you this, once we start noticing anything going on with them, I will tell you Chief Avelies from the City of St. Augustine Fire Department, we were sitting in a public safety meeting, and we had just been killed with bridge questions. Yeah. And we're trying to come up with some solution. And he's like, what if we had a website where we could update the bridges? And we were like, you know what? And our phenomenal GIS department was sitting there and they're like, we could probably do something. So they have developed, we have only last year sort of rolled it out because we didn't have a ton going on with bridge issues, but we have a bridge dashboard. It was the brainchild of Carlos sitting there one day with an idea and our friends over in GIS. So it's a dashboard that we will now make live and you will see each bridge and it will show you as accessible, inaccessible, because again, we don't close bridges.
Yeah.
And issue. So it will be red, green, or yellow. Issue means sometimes for example, the approach on the west side of the Bridge Alliance was flooded for one lane. So we will put notes in there like that, and they will see it. It will only roll out once we're having some sort of a tropical issue. It's not live every day. We will roll it out, and it's one of those things. We'll see. Okay. We'll let it encounter, and we'll see how it goes.
Blake, we can add that to our GTV app. Can't we? That link for the bridges?
Yeah. So, but you did say though that website will only go live.
It will only go live once we're ordering an evacuation or something like that. Once we have tropical weather and moving in, and we have the EOC stood up, that's when that will become live. And
no pressure, Blake. You just got to keep an eye on it when it goes live.
You got to be quick.
Yeah.
So, and we are hoping, because you're absolutely right. What we tell folks, and that's to go back to your question, what should you not do? Do not drive over a bridge like the 312 or the Volano Bridge when the wind's blowing 50 miles. It's not safe.
I can tell you, from experience, you don't want to do this.
No, it's
don't want
dangerous.
To do this. I don't know if you remember, because I'd already opened. You were there. We had already opened the amphitheater because I was in an argument with the people that were coming. That was Boston. The musical group Boston, and I canceled the show because it was a hurricane that was stuck off of Daytona, kind of like hanging out over there. And I think Linda's like, "Hey, can you go do an interview?" I was like, "All right." And so I hopped in, put on my little magnet that you guys gave me.
Oh yeah.
So I could get across the bridge, and I went across the bridge of the 312 bridge. Came back on the Bridge Alliance, but I literally I had Will Smith, the director, after me in the car with me, and we were in the slow lane going to the beach on 312, and the wind blew us over to the other lane, and I was like, I don't know when we're going to stop blowing here at this point. I remember looking at Will's face. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm not doing this. We're not coming back this way, even if we have to stay on the island." But you do not want to drive across those bridges, and if one of those gusts hit you, it's a very dangerous situation. So.
Right. And I would say, it's not safe for the bridge question. That's it. It's the number one question.
And it was the Weather Channel, and I was like, "How'd you guys get here?" It's like, "Oh, we've been here, all day long." I was like,
we've been sitting here since before the wind blew.
It's like, what? How do you guys do this? So,
but that actually leads me into like another jokey question though for though. It's like so for you, Kelly, what's like the biggest sign that we know a major hurricane's going to hit us? Like for you personally, is it when Jim Cantore of the Weather Channel appears in our county? Or is it when the Waffle House closes?
I'll tell you this: it's not great if Jim Cantore is standing on your beach.
If he's here, it's bad.
It is not great if that man is standing on your beach because
Laura's happy.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing is there's several. You know how you'll see them when a hurricane's coming and they've got them dotted, and you don't want him especially. Stephanie Abrams is usually fairly close too. Like those people, you do not want. You really are not. But I'll tell you what, there's a Waffle House out there by us. We eat there pretty regular.
Yeah.
I think it'd take a lot for that one to close. I've decided.
They're
not. That one's staying. And I don't know. Is there another one? There's the other one up off 210.
210. Yeah.
So we have two.
Yeah. So if they close down, it's even Floridians, even lifelong Floridians get a little nervous.
Yeah, we've got significant problems.
The other thing is, and I want to get this message out. Check your generators now. Don't wait until the storm is coming. Check your generators now if you need to get them serviced and all that. That's something we got to do this week, Blake. So we have a couple of generators we got to check. So check your generators right now.
Away from your house.
Yes.
Out of your
not
garage.
Inside your garage.
Not
outside. Outside. Make sure you got the water, the batteries, all those things. Toilet paper. So. Nah, no one wants that. No, that's not pretty. That's not pretty for anybody. So, anything we've left off, Kelly?
Check your evacuation zone. Find out if you are in one. We have the greatest GIS department in St. Johns County. Go check that website. They've created a very easy to use app. You enter your St. Johns County address, be it business or home. Go in there and enter your address and know if you live in an evacuation zone. So that's your first step.
Do we still have the cards, the re-entry?
We do not do re-entry cards. We've tried several versions of that. It's either safe or not safe now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that's the point at which we may not let you back over an area because it's impossible because A1A is covered.
Not safe.
Stuff.
Yeah.
But we may block neighborhoods that are like Davis Shores, for example. At one point, we had law enforcement not allowing looky-loos. Because what we don't is we don't want the randoms who just want to, see whatever. But no, we do not have passes in or out. It's either safe or not safe.